everyone. So it has already got to 9:30. I can't quite believe it. So yeah, the last 24 hours has been quite lovely. Welcome to today's mindful moment. Just taking a moment to reflect on the last 24 hours myself, and I wonder what you have experienced and what you want to reflect on right now. And what I want to ponder today with you is neuroplasticity. I did a talk yesterday. It was kind of almost spontaneous, and it was at the Catalyst Club in Brighton, and it was to a lovely full crowd. I think there must have been about somewhere between 100 and 120 people there. And I got invited in last minute, and I gave a talk on the irony of seeking happiness. And during that talk, hello. So during that talk, I sort of touched a little bit on neuroplasticity and our ability to reprogram the way that we think, the way that we feel, the way that we feel about the way that we think, and thus our lives and our actions in it. Going on the sort of assumption that our thoughts influence our words, which then influence our deeds. And so neuroplasticity is our ability to actively change the neural synapses in the brain to wire with conscious intention. So that may sound quite, it may sound quite an ethereal concept, but actually it's very practical. So it can be likened a little bit like when you're hacking your way through a jungle. The first time you walk through the jungle, you may sort of have to hack with your machete sort of through the undergrowth, and in that it might feel really hard, and you're thinking, God, there's not a bat's chance of ever doing this again. But if you went back and trod that same path the next day, it would be a little bit easier, and there would be a little bit less hacking and a little bit more walking and exploring. And then you may go a little bit off-piste and then come back on, and after a while there would be a footpath there for you, and the path would be it may be hilly and meandering, but it would be clear. And after a while still, there may be more people that follow you and their friends, and that path may widen, and then over time it would build to it would be a sort of go-to, a main path through the undergrowth, through metaphorical life. And then when we get really good at walking through that path, then the brain, so this is really an analogy to the neural synapses firing, and the sort of hey Cheryl, how you doing? And so when the neural synapses fire with intention, and we're sort of practicing that way of thinking and being and walking through this metaphorical jungle, then after a time we get quite good at that. And when we get good at it, the brain puts a layer of fat over that pathway, and so then that becomes a motorway, and then we get really freaking good at thinking that way. And that is when it's a go-to. That's when it becomes a sort of our reflex. And we have the power to exercise the power of choice over the junctions between those pathways. And so we may have been, during a really sad period of our lives, getting really good at thinking in a negative way about ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves. And so it's really a question of exercising the power of choice to walk that new pathway and practice it enough that we get really good at it, and the brain puts that layer of fat and it becomes a motorway, and then that becomes our go-to. And so in that way, that's this kind of, I think, obsession with our happiness and seeking it. And there's a bit of an irony to the idea of seeking happiness, whereas we can practice ways of thinking that may feel really artificial at times. I have a layer of fat over more than just my synapses. Yes, well, I'm practicing that right now. I'm having a delicious curry. So, yes, it's just that sort of way of I think it's a brilliant way that we can develop and grow and become more conscious as actually putting this intention into how we think. And yeah, that irony of seeking happiness is that we often cut ourselves off from our connections to seek this happiness journey on our own, and in that actually make ourselves less happy through cutting off from connections through this kind of fear of imperfection. And so actually imperfection isn't existing. It's not really a thing. You know, we sort of compare ourselves as well. And then when we compare ourselves, how happy was I then? How happy are you? How happy am I compared to you? You know, all of that is completely getting away from true joy in life. And so what if we were to swap happiness for presence? And actually practicing being present, being more present together. And whether that's present with ourselves or present in company, it's really easily done. It's executed very simply. It can be instantaneous. It's a question of looking away from the phone. Maybe not if I looked away from the phone right now, I'd be a little bit rude, which I won't. But you know, in company, when you're talking to someone and they're glancing down at their phone and you're just thinking, thanks, mate. You know, it's just a bit of a knock. It's a bit of a rejection. Sometimes big enough to mention, other times not, you know, but you just feel this kind of lack of presence from that person. And it feels pretty rubbish. And put that on the flip side and you have somebody that's really present with you. It doesn't really matter if they're being entertaining or funny or if they're being what they're saying particularly. Just their presence is really enough to feel appreciated and valued. And so we're in, you know, control of offering one another this amazing gift of presence and choosing where we put our presence and therefore our attention. And yeah, so that's really what today is all about, is exercising the power of choice in the way that we think and choosing where we put our attention and where we put our presence to, hi Lorene, how you doing? And using that to essentially exercise the brain muscle and form these new neural pathways and exercise our capacity for neuroplasticity, which I find massively exciting. My presence is right back on you, Cheryl. So, fabulous, right back at ya, Ashtangi Queen. So, have an amazing and splendid Friday evening. And hopefully you're as rock and roll as I am, sitting here in my flat with my delicious dinner. A little bit late in the day, but that's fine. It's Friday night. So have a wicked one. Loads of love to you. And I'll be back tomorrow with more mindful moment chat. Yeah, have a great one. Lots of love. Bye.